title of our conference is Many Worlds of AI, and few people have done more to bring the many worlds of AI together than Bing Song over the last few years in her capacity as director of the Berggruen Center in China, where we've had the real privilege to be working with her and increasing mutual understanding between China and the West, not just China, other East Asian countries and philosophies, and many of the cultures of the West, bringing together over many years. And now I'm delighted to hand over to Bing. After she's given her talk, then we'll assemble a panel to take your questions, and we'll finish about 6:45. So please join me in welcoming Bing for our keynote today.
Thank you, Steve. And I know all of you had a long day, so I hope I won't put you to sleep. Anyway, so the title of my talk is, as you can see, I call it Sparks of Ideas. Okay, that's sort of the literal translation of, there's a phrase in Chinese called 思想火花, sparks of ideas, inspirations from East Asian philosophies. And essentially, you know, we try to bring up some ideas to see in which way sort of informed our approaches to AI ethics. Anyway, so I have to say, first of all, it is my great honor to have this opportunity to share with you my thoughts on this topic. And then they were derived from a somewhat experimental research project I led at the Berggruen Institute. The project is called Intelligence and Wisdom, AI Meets Chinese Philosophers. So in this project, we brought AI scientists together with the philosophers trained in Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, and then engaged in a series of dialogues and workshops. To capture some of the interesting ideas and thinking that came out of those discussions, I actually edited a small book bearing the same title of the project that was published in 2021. I just want to show you the cover of the book. Open access is available. So that's why, you know, feel free to go online and then download as much as you can. So the points of view that I'm about to share with you are actually preliminary, I would say, or even speculative at times. So that's why I was explaining this term earlier. In Chinese, we call them sparks of ideas, which are intended to challenge accepted wisdom, introduce additional perspectives, and inspire novel thinking. So this approach, in my view, befits the age of disruptive technologies and the recurrent planetary scale risks we are currently living through. My talk will consist of 3 parts. First, I will introduce a relational approach. This is not a strange word anymore. A relational approach in thinking about AI ethics and the philosophical origins of this thinking in the East Asian context. I want to make sure that Professor Marcus Gabriel hear that point. I'm not saying you don't have that in Western context. I'm just trying to explain the philosophical origins of this thinking in the East Asian context in this talk. And then secondly, I will imagine ways of incorporating inorganic things or objects, including AI systems, into the human-centered moral universe. Finally, I will end the talk by arguing that rapidly evolving frontier technologies offer us a unique opportunity to raise the level of human consciousness and engage in introspection and pursue enlightenment. In this talk, following the lead of many institutions, I will use the term AI systems to refer to systems which have the capacity to process data and produce outputs with a resemblance to human intelligence. It includes intelligent AI programs and robots. So the first point I want to share with you is, I'll call it, put the humans back in the relational cosmic order. An implicit or explicit conceptual framework underlying any discussion of AI ethics and human AI relationship is our understanding of how human beings are conceived in this grand scheme of things, what we are composed of, and then how we relate to others in the universe. The study for humans is foundational and runs through all philosophical and ethical traditions. In modern societies, East and the West included, the study of humanity has been centered around the notion of the individual as an autonomous, self-contained, and rational self. This notion of a distinct entity separate from others has taken the center stage in our social, economic, and political thinking. This disengaged self is the starting point of an irrational economic analysis and is the bearer of rights in the social and political contexts. Additionally, in modern societies, human beings are the most significant entities in the world, separate from and superior to nature. Human life has intrinsic value, while other entities, including animals, plants, and organic matter, are mere resources that may justifiably be exploited at will for human ends. This individual-oriented and anthropocentric mindset, together with the capitalist ethos of competition and value maximization, have contributed to unprecedented human flourishing in the past 2 centuries. They are also, however, responsible in large part, if not entirely, for the increasingly deteriorating human condition and ecological degradation we are experiencing right now. Although anthropocentrism and extractive individualism have been tempered in recent decades, they continue to have a stronghold in the mainstream global life. So how do East Asian philosophies inspire us to think and act differently? In classical Chinese thinking, the typical construct for understanding human beings is through the so-called trinity of heavens, earth, and humans. 天地人三才, in Chinese. It derives from one of the most ancient Chinese classics, I Ching, or the Book of Changes, which is the intellectual fountain of both Confucianism and Taoism. Heavens, earth, and humans, along with the associated yin-yang forces, are viewed as constituents of the cosmos, within which nature evolves, human beings prosper, and societies develop. Within this construct, human beings are inherently part of the broader set of cosmic forces. We can only flourish if we follow the laws of the cosmos and strive to attain unity between the cosmic order and humanity. Among the classical traditions, Confucianism is known for its humanistic concerns and places much more emphasis on human proactivity and the human affairs. However, the premise of Confucian humanism is still the awe and the respect of Tian, which is the first character here, typically translated as humans or cosmic order or nature, okay? Tian, which is in classical thinking, referred to both the natural physical world surrounding us and the metaphysical force which creates or manifests everything, including ourselves. This cosmic thinking is therefore the base color on which the splendid world of Confucian human ethics has been painted. As human beings have always been conceived in relation to other constituents of the universe, the notion of primordial connectivity among all forms of being runs deep across East Asian traditions. This form of a relational thinking shapes and infuses all aspects of a human life. Confucianism has brought this notion of relationality to bear on social relationships and places paramount emphasis on family and social roles and their associated ethical duties. We are all born into a web of family and social relationships. As such, we're intimately linked to our ancestors and descendants. An individual is only a part of the continuum of a family's lineage. Confucian ethics are therefore first and foremost about family relationships, emphasizing different roles and the associated responsibilities. The narrative of the cosmological unity is also shared by Taoism, according to which humans, nature, and myriad things are derivatives of Tao. And and that in light of Tao, all things are equal. As the well-known 4th century BCE Taoist philosopher Zhuangzi famously said, "Heaven and earth are born together with me, and the 10,000 things and I are one." In other words, humanity, nature, and everything else within the cosmos is conceived to exist in relation to and mutually embedded within each other from the very beginning. Taoist teaching directs people towards leading a life in tune with nature, rather than a heavy reliance on socially anchored moral and ethical codes. Taoism advocates a transcendent life by searching inwards for internal tranquility and seeking to be in unity with Tao. Buddhism was introduced to China from India in the early Han Dynasty, which is 202 BCE and 220 CE, and has since firmly become part of Chinese philosophical traditions. The assimilation and transformation of Buddhism into Chinese philosophical traditions has been perhaps the most significant event in the history of Chinese thought, a long topic of another discussion. According to Buddhism, all sentient beings have Buddha nature or self-nature, which refers to the metaphysical essence of all beings. The phenomenal world we are experiencing and every creature and object within it are mere manifestations of this self-nature. So ontologically, human beings, creatures, plants, and even inorganic things are of the same essence and origin. In the world of forms, there's kind of a Buddhist term in forms, in Buddhist thinking, beings go through endless cycles of birth, growth, decay, and rebirth in different life forms. Human beings are understood as part of this endless cycle of samsara, and are thus interconnected with other life forms in a primordial sense. While Buddhism recognizes the importance of human agency in our enhanced ability to practice Dharma and realize Buddha nature, it also emphasizes the primordial connectivity of all beings and the equality of all sentient creatures. In short, regardless of differences in their outlooks on the nature of humanity, human life, or social norms, none of the 3 dominant East Asian philosophical traditions places human beings in a supreme position within the universe, nor do they view human beings and nature as distinct and confrontational entities. Just the opposite. At an ontological level, human beings, creatures, plants, and even inorganic matters are derived from or manifestations of Tao or self-nature. So we are primordially relational and entangled with each other. Perhaps this notion of cosmological unity and entanglement can help us recalibrate our modern notions of disengaged self and human agency, and in fact urges us to reshape these notions in an interconnected and relational manner. Ethical implications of this worldview would really celebrate virtues of self-restraint, moderation, and perspective taking, or transposition thinking. In Chinese, we say 换位思考 on the part of humanity. So what does this worldview mean for thinking about AI-human relationships and AI ethics? It means that we could approach AI ethics in a holistic and relational manner. We should neither be human-centric nor individual-centric, to the point that humans and individuals can do no harm, and above and beyond criticism. The starting point for consideration of AI ethics would be a totality of various relationships involving humans, creatures, and AI systems. So it's individual versus various relationships as the starting point for thinking about ethics. We would no longer think AI-related rules and regulations and codes of conduct applicable only to AI engineers and AI companies. Instead, we take into account all other relevant actors who are in close and entangled relationships with each other. I'm looking at such as data creators, consumers, insurance companies, the general public, and the state. In today's digital world, we human beings are data contributors, producers, and consumers rolled into one. Placing ethical duties on one at exclusion of others will only solve part of the problem of our collective creation. I would say if using the various relationships as the starting point for ethical thinking, this actually could mean so many implications when we think about AI ethics. Here, I would like to actually call your attention to the significant effort and work which has been done. Peter Singer, professor of bioethics at Princeton University, and he's also 2021 recipient of the Berggruen Prize for Philosophy and Culture. He has been calling for AI for all sentient beings, not just humans. So he actually, in his recent piece that was published by the Berggruen Institute journal, Noema, he was talking about the AI, the introduction of AI systems has actually exacerbated the cruel conditions for animals. And all this has been done in the name of increasing human welfare. So anyway, so when we approach AI ethics issues, and then we really need to think broadly, not just human-centric or human-friendly kind of AI ethics. We got to, think in relationally, and then think about other forms of beings as well. So, but I will take a relatively more mainstream, human-centric example here. I'll take the liabilities for driverless cars as an example. Numerous studies have shown that automation will dramatically increase safety on the highways by reducing both the number and severity of accidents. However, the public rollout of driverless cars is mired in debates about liability. In cases of accidents caused by self-driving vehicles, should personal liability or manufacturer liability take precedence? Should insurers be solely liable for the claims arising from such accidents? If we look at the totality of the matter and take a relational approach to this, we open up new possibilities in resolving this conundrum. As noted earlier, autonomous driving has proven to be beneficial to human society by potentially reducing human and indeed animal fatalities and injuries. All of us, including other wandering creatures, such as deer, cows, dogs, and cats, would benefit from it. Of course, insurance companies would also benefit by having fewer accident claims against them. Driverless companies would clearly benefit from increasing vehicle sales. But bearing in mind, though, their significant prior investment in early R&D and testing. However, the existing framework for analyzing and apportioning liabilities among drivers and vehicle manufacturers is perhaps inadequate. Clearly, it would be unfair to the human drivers to bear complete liability with no driving decisions having been made by him or her, other than the decision to use such a vehicle. It may not be entirely fair either to the manufacturer to shoulder all the liabilities, since at the time of designing and testing the vehicle, it would be mathematically and humanly impossible to anticipate all negative future possibilities in advance. The well-being of the individual drivers, the vehicle manufacturers, and the entire human society indeed are intricately connected in the future of driverless cars. Then why can't we envision a scheme of collective responsibility by creating a private and public partnership fund whereby car manufacturers, insurance companies, and the state, on behalf of individuals and the general public, join hands to address significant downsides which may arise out of autonomous driving related accidents. Another interesting implication, though not directly ethics related, but which will have ethics implications, is the notion of relationality. may also inspire a different intelligence test for AI systems. In speaking about intelligence tests for AI systems, we can't avoid the subject of consciousness. The Chinese philosophers that I have been interacting with are divided on whether AI systems can attain consciousness to the extent that they can meaningfully understand or empathize with human beings. Professor Robin Wang, who spoke this morning, currently in the audience, she thinks that at this point, AI systems are far from achieving human-like intelligence, which she has characterized as yin-yang intelligence. As Robin points out, yin-yang intelligence refers to the ability to deal with open-ended questions, adapt to unforeseen scenarios, and cope with uncertainty, among others. Clearly, today's AI systems have not yet demonstrated sufficient ability to cope with changing circumstances or uncertainty. Neither do they understand human intent or instinct. Others, such as the contemporary spiritual mentor and Buddhist philosopher Liu Fenghe, go further and completely dismiss any possibility of the emergence of conscious AI system. Liu notes that only self-nature can give rise to consciousness. Human consciousness is a mere manifestation of self-nature, and thus has its emergence and cessation. A manifested human consciousness can never develop tools capable of conscious thinking. Now I'm very conscious of the word tools now because after Peter's presentation. AI systems are mere extensions of human intelligence, a concept born out of human consciousness. Outside human consciousness, no such concept exists. However, some philosophers remain open to the possibility of a conscious AI emerging in the future. For them, when thinking about humanity's future with AI superintelligence, the Chinese notion of wu, you see the Chinese character wu, roughly and incompletely translated as object or things. This notion has been employed to refer to AI and robotics. Wu in the Chinese context has many meanings, depending on the context in which it is used. There is no doubt, however, that the concept of Wu often refers to entities and things in general, including both organic and inorganic things, as well as man-made objects. The usage of Wu in referring to AI systems leaves sufficient ambiguity and flexibility as to whether such AI or robotics may have achieved consciousness. In other words, the test of consciousness is not central to discussing the human relationship with the future AI systems. More importantly, as the reasoning goes, it is the tone and the character of the relationship between human beings and Wu, AI and robots included, that determines the moral status of Wu and how human beings should treat them. So in my view, this notion of relationality can perhaps inspire a different kind of approach in testing the intelligence of AI systems, rather than focusing on AI's individual analytical and emotional attributes in judging its level of intelligence. The relational AI test, as I call it, would use dynamic and contextual judgments of intelligence levels by examining the degree, quality, and the tone of AI systems integration into human society and the broader environment. Compared to the Turing test, this is clearly a much harder and perhaps more sophisticated test of intelligence of AI systems. So the natural next question would be whether or not we should consider including inorganic things into the human-centered moral order. This leads to my second point in this talk. So the title, my second point is a question, okay? Do mere things or objects have a role in the human moral order? The ab initio relationality of humanity, nature, and Wu, AI systems included, postulates that we are all interconnected and mutually embedded. We therefore ought to treat other forms of beings, organic or inorganic, with respect, compassion, or care as appropriate. Along this line of thinking, some Confucian and Taoist scholars have proposed that we view AI systems as companions. This reminds me of the discussion that Professor Sakura talked about earlier, that in Japan, they tend to think robots as partners, right? So anyway, in the Chinese philosophical context, when we discuss this, philosophers typically use the word companions. Confucian ethics advocates a framework of graded love, whereby standards of care and responsibility differ depending on the nature of the relationship. Mencius captures this in a famous formulation. In Chinese is 人亲亲人民爱物, which is translated as affectionate to one's parents and family members, lovingly disposed to people generally, and kind to wu. Wu is this concept I just mentioned, okay? So arguing from a Confucian perspective, AI systems can be viewed as one of the wu to be appreciated and utilized within this framework. If AI system can demonstrate the capacity to make ethically relevant decisions, perhaps AI could even be considered a moral patient. Of course, as we know, we heard a little bit this morning from Professor Sakura that Japanese Shintoism influenced animism has gone much further down the path of infusing human spirit and characteristics to AI systems, leading to what we call techno-animism. I mean, animism recognizes the potential of all creatures and objects, including animals, plants, and rocks, to be animated and alive. Extending this to technologies is a logical step taken by many who have been enamored with all pervasive and animistic practices for millennia. But here I would like to emphasize my take on this, the ground on which we accord care and advocate civility and gentleness towards wu, including inorganic things, is not because wu, in this case, including highly intelligent AI systems, may develop consciousness as we know it, which is an open question, but more because whatever we do and say will leave behind data and associated value judgment and preferences, which in turn will flow into the data pool to be learned and analyzed by AI systems. Whatever we leave behind will boomerang back to us. Therefore, in my view, exhibition of such care and civility towards all creatures and things around us is a reflection of a human moral sensibility. These things or objects serve as a reminder, a reflexive tool, prompting us to pause and engage in internal moral deliberations. This leads me to my third part of the talk, which is the final one as well. First order priority, AI ethics or collective human self-introspection. Before sharing with you my views, let me remind you of a Netflix hit, which competed successfully for public attention in 2020 when the world was ripped apart by the global pandemic. It was a must-see documentary of that year. I don't know whether or not people still remember that, but anyway, that's the documentary. The title is called The Social Dilemma. I don't know how many of you have seen that. So at the time, a lot of people watched that, yeah. It made it plain that manipulation by creating addiction-prone algorithms and enabling privacy breaches are part of the business model deliberately designed by pervasive and all-encompassing platforms we use daily. This have been mainstay criticisms against the platform companies and internet culture in recent years. The biggest problem with this analysis is that they, the platform companies, the advertisers, third-party application developers, are the problems, not us. Conscientious defectors, whistleblowers, defrauded and manipulated innocent consumers, righteous journalists, academics, and policy analysts. Instead, we are part of the solution. I still remember one of my earlier career mentors telling me repeatedly that never, ever be or admit being part of a problem. Always be part of the solution. I don't know how many of you have heard that advice. This is very common advice. The social dilemma is a steadfast follower of that advice. When asked by a panel of US senators who was responsible for widespread manipulation and privacy breaches, without hesitation, the producer of this documentary replied, the platform companies. Well, it seemed to be the right answer, but I would take an issue with this view. Again, I draw inspirations from East Asian philosophies here. Most East Asian philosophers would probably agree that a common theme of the three dominant philosophical traditions in East Asia, just now I talked about Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, lies in the theories and practices relating to what contemporary philosopher Tommy Fung referred to as exaltation of personality. All three traditions emphasize the importance of self-restraint, constant introspection, and endless pursuit of sagehood or enlightenment. While they differ in their approaches to the nature of a human life and notions of the human flourishing, they share a commitment to personal cultivation, which is essential for self-fulfillment and the broader social and spiritual goals. AI systems are products of the human mind. They exhibit nothing but our values and the level of consciousness. Therefore, AI systems are humanity's mirror, reflecting and magnifying our strengths and flaws. Fear of AI systems, in essence, is fear of fellow human beings. We're the crux of the problem, and humanity is the variable which will have the biggest impact on the outcome of any AI future. So at this juncture of thinking about potential existential risks for humanity, while not diminishing the importance of enacting principles and guidelines for designing and deploying AI systems, a critical task facing humanity is our need to engage in deep self-reflection and self-rectification. We should pause and rethink notions and conceptual frameworks which may have served us well in past centuries, but may have also led us into many of the impasses we now find ourselves in. Perhaps it is time that we propose new foundational values appropriate for this age, marked by a multiplicity of existential level risks. To that end, actually, I have proposed elsewhere compassion and harmony as the foundational values for this era of multiple existential risks. By the way, in this book, in the introduction, I did write about it, and more details about it. The two concepts, compassion and harmony, share the common underlying worldview of relationality, mutual embeddedness, and diversity. So just now I refer you to the introduction of this book, which has more details on this idea. Turning back to the social dilemma docudrama, here's what I would say. While not abdicating responsibilities of those pervasive and massively profitable platform companies, we need to ask ourselves, can we just stop the inquiry here? Are they the sole villains? What about the investing communities? You may be one of them, which have been demanding ever-increasing return on the capital they invested in these ventures. What about the ethos of a zero-sum competition and profit maximization of capitalism? What about the relentless drive of consumerism and economic growth, as if trees could grow to the sky? What about the education and personal goals of becoming successful, which has been defined as wealthy, powerful, and famous? The list goes on. It does not take a genius to realize that we are part of the problem, or rather, we are the problem. Instead of pointing fingers at others, for our problems, we are mirror reflections of them. We and they are one. So to come to this thinking requires a paradigm shift in approaching problems, rather than sliding into the usual dualistic thinking of us versus them, enemy versus friend, malfeasance versus innocent victimhood. This new thinking requires one to look inward reflectively, to think about who we are, our relationships with others, and with the social problems, and our role within them. You may well say, aren't you blaming the victims? Yes, indeed, victims are part to blame. Blaming others is a social malaise of the day. The docudrama of Social Dilemma was not particularly guilty of this blame-shifting mentality. It just aptly, albeit disappointingly, expressed the contemporary ethos. Perhaps it is time that we pause and look inward and reflect upon values and systems we take as truisms. Values such as extractive individualism, maximizing of a profit and return, unconstrained growth of wealth, zero-sum competition mentality, consumer supremacy, and mainstream understanding of personal happiness and success all need to be challenged and rethought. At an even more profound level, questions about the purpose of life, life as in life and death, what humans truly are, and how we are related to each other, with the environment and other forms of beings are no longer some new age fads to be missed offhand. After all, the world we live in and our myriad experiences are mere reflections of our collective level of consciousness. So in conclusion, I advocate to put the humans back to the relational cosmic order and approach everything, including AI ethics, in a relational manner. And secondly, I would be open to including AI systems in the human-centered moral universe, though I value much more the reflexive prompts AI systems provide to human moral self-reflection. Finally, I would end by saying that our best chance for developing human-friendly AI and other forms of frontier technologies is for humans to come together as one and tackle planetary challenges and become more compassionate and committed to building an inclusive and harmonious planetary system. Only when we start engaging in deep self-reflection and amending our own behaviors can we truly be role models for AI systems. Thank you.